Misfits on vinyl. Two best friends shooting the shit about their favorite title. Spencer and Aaron, and that's all there is now. It's Misfits on vinyl for me. Hello and welcome to Misfits on Vinyl. My name is Spencer Strakert. I'm an actor, comedian, and one of your tits.
My name is Aaron Walsh, and I am also a tit. Now there's only two tits. We used to be a tree tit, a tree tit.
We used to be a tree tit. We used to be like the alien hooker on Total Recall, and now we are like Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah, now we're normal.
Now we're
Yeah,
normal.
except we're on Zoom, and you're across the country. You're
Yeah,
two time zones away.
I guess there's two things that we need to bring up before we get into the pod. Thing number one, we are recording on Zoom right now. So apologies to everyone because I know that the audio is not going to be the quality that you are used to. Our voices will be crackly, I assume. There will
Yep.
be some pauses, but I am out in Halifax right now, and I'm going to be touring around Nova Scotia and then the Northwest Territories. And so this is the best that we can do right now, unfortunately. But we wanted to make sure that we could have a lot of content for you guys while I was gone, and so that you wouldn't forget about us, because it's all about the algorithm.
Yeah, and I mean, I even went out and bought a mic, and we used fucking Zoom. It's
Oh
probably
man,
making zero difference. I spent $70 on this mic.
oh, dude,
Um,
I'm sorry. Yeah, we used to use Squadcast for our guests, but Squadcast got absorbed by Descript, and then my Squadcast account, I had paused the subscription, but it didn't pause it, so it just said that I owed a bunch of money, and then I paid Descript money, and then it wouldn't let me use Descript. So I don't know what the hell is happening there, but yeah, not the ideal situation. So we're on Zoom. That's
yeah.
the long and tin of it. You know,
I mean,
uh,
even when we usually do this podcast, we never used a script anyway. So.
that's honestly very true. Very
um,
nondescript.
yes, but in other news, like I guess it's kind of sad. Like we have been on a bit of a hiatus for like I don't know, it's been like over a month now. We
Yeah, it's
dropped one.
been 36 days.
And for good reason. We had a plan for when you went away. Like we talked about a couple times on the podcast. I don't know if those episodes even got released, but we talked about banking a bunch of episodes so we can post them while you're away. We put some work into doing that, but unfortunately, as we've mentioned before, Sam is no longer with us on the podcast. He's still with us in real life, but he's just no longer with us.
The way that you started that sounded like he fucking died.
He didn't die. He didn't die. Yeah, like Sam has decided to chase some other creative pursuits elsewhere, and he's branched away from the podcast. We love him and we miss him and we wish him all the best. We're still friends. For all the juicy gossip on TMZ that's going to come out about this. But yeah, we miss Sam, and we're happy that he's pursuing some new things, and we'll figure it out. We'll move forward. We're gonna hire some
and
guy on Fiverr, and
and yeah, or some recent fucking state grad. That was kind of my
yep.
thought. I was like, we'll get some kid that's fresh out of broadcasting school, uh, to do the job, because fresh out of broadcasting school, they need credits and
Yes.
probably an extra couple $100 a month.
Yeah. So we're talking about that, and we're also talking about maybe getting in the studio somewhere here soon, possibly having our own space come the new year. So there's exciting things in the works for us going forward here on the podcast.
On the podcast, and we should clarify too, like for anybody wondering, like like we do have like some of the episodes that we pre-recorded, but because Sam's no longer a part of the podcast, he didn't want his voice in it, so we have to go through and like edit those, so we don't know how much of those we will be able to use, so we're kind of gonna play it by ear. We do have all of those documents still written, so we can re-record those episodes.
Yep.
And we have to re-record one anyways, because we had Brett Cassidy on it, then we Lost the whole episode. So that one really sucks. I still have to tell Brett about that. I just
Yeah.
don't want to break his sweetheart. Fuck, he's such a sweetheart.
It was
Uh,
such a good episode too.
I know, and it was so early in the morning. Fucking goddamn. I still haven't woken up that early since then. That
I
was
know.
like
Usually you sleep in when we have a guest on that early. But anyways, hey,
dude,
I'm
and
happy to be back. I'm happy
I'm
to have
happy to be
Spencer
back
back.
too.
I missed you, bro. I'm excited for the next chapter of the podcast. We're gonna be getting back to that consistency that we, wanted to, we kind of set forth for ourselves going forward. So, from here on forth, hold us accountable.
Yeah, and please message us and tell us that we should kill ourselves if we don't maintain the
Yeah.
consistency. Because I need more people to tell me that they want me dead. I don't get it nearly enough on TikTok. I would
Mm.
like it to come from our own fans, honestly. That would be the thing that I would appreciate is hearing that from people who actually know me. The
I'm already on the ledge. Just push me. Just push me. Finish me. Finish me.
Finish me off, bro. Come on. Hit me hard, daddy. Fuck. The one thing I will say though is this is actually our 1 year anniversary.
Well, there we
Um,
go. Look at that.
so that's pretty exciting. This is coming out on our 1 year anniversary, and this is episode 44 or 45. I forget which. But in all honesty, pretty goddamn good for our first year that we only missed a couple of weeks. And a lot of times it was out of our control, like fucking things happen, but we did pretty good for our first year. And thank you everybody who has been tuning in for a year because it's been so much fun doing this podcast. I Unlike the Years podcast, we will not quit when we hit 2 years.
We're gonna keep going with this thing and see where it takes us. But in other news, I do have to bring up something that happened in your life, Spencer.
Oh,
Um, yeah, you did the thing that I did. You didn't tell anybody you were gonna go get engaged.
oh yes, I thought you were talking about shitting myself because I did that recently too.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't hear about that. We could talk about that later. Talk about your love first. But yeah,
Yeah,
man, congratulations, man. I'm so happy for you and Siobhan. It's really awesome news. We hung out briefly after, before you left, and it was warm and bubbly. I'm so happy for you.
it was quite the fucking experience. Let me tell you, I was terrified. And I had it planned out. Like I did exactly like you did. I didn't tell anybody for the whole time, and except for there was one person who I told, which was my best friend from high school. And then the whole trip, he kept messaging me and being like, "Did you do it yet?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, fucking get on it." And so like, so yeah, what ended up happening was we were staying at my grandparents' place out in Nelson, BC, and it's been in our family for like well over 100 years, and so it's a really special place to me. And my original plan was to get Siobhan's grandma's engagement ring and propose with that, but I couldn't find it, and it turns out Siobhan's oh, burp. Sorry, Siobhan's that was so tasty. Um,
So tasty, eh?
dude, I had sushi earlier.
I was like, I thought you were gonna say a donair.
No, dude, I listen. That's what gave me the shits that made me shit myself. Okay, I had a donair, king of donair, king of don't fucking wear white pants.
King of don't eat there.
Don't eat there. Oh, fucking, so good.
You had a missed
Uh,
opportunity.
that was a missed opportunity. Thank you for jumping on that because I fucking dropped the ball there. But yeah, no, I planned on proposing with her grandma's mother's engagement ring. Then I couldn't find it. So I went to some hippie store in Nelson, BC, and I fucking got like a fucking jewel stone ring, like something that it was nice, like it looked good. It was a proxy ring, right? But it was funny because when I was in the store, I'm like asking the lady, like, "Oh, can I see that ring?" And she's like, "Do you even know what that ring means?" And I'm like, "No, can you tell me?" And then she just rolled her eyes and didn't tell me. And then I'm like, "Oh, I like this one." She's like, "Well, is that even her birthstone?" I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "When's her birthday?" I'm like, "March." She's like, "That's not her birthstone." I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you, you weird hippie? Like, I'm trying to buy something from you. Just let me give you legal tender for this fucking ring, you fuck.
She doesn't believe in capitalism, bro. It's not your fault.
No, it's exactly. She doesn't believe in capitalism or deodorant by the fucking smells of things.
If you offered her a couple of tabs of acid, you would have had a deal.
Oh, dude, I feel
Like,
like her acid days were well behind her, and she was probably younger than me. Like that's how fucking wastoid this chick was. I was
damn.
like, Jesus. But yeah, so did it on the at my grandparents' property, down on the creek, which is my favorite place in the world because it's where me and my grandpa used to go fishing. And it was raining out, so the creek was high, and Siobhan's like, "Wow, the water's high. We should go swimming." And she went to go down the bank, and then I got down on one knee and pulled out the ring, and she turned around, and then I went, "Oh fuck, I gotta say something now," is what went through my mind. And so I just started talking, and I didn't stop. It was like the fight or flight in my head was like, if you don't stop talking, she can't say no. Like that was and like it's not even like I thought she was gonna say no. Like I didn't think that that was a possibility at all. I just was like, oh fuck, I'm nervous now because it's scary, as you know. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like I choked up. I told you I forgot all the things I wanted to say, and it took me about 15, 20 minutes to say what I had planned to say. Um, and I'm usually not like that. So it was one of those moments in my life, super special. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's a memory that'll last forever, man.
Yeah, dude. Until I get Alzheimer's, I'm gonna remember it forever. That's
Then you're
why
gonna forget.
then I'm
Then you're
gonna
gonna
forget.
forget. Yeah.
That's why I want to record so much of my life because I want to make sure that when I have dementia, Alzheimer's, I'm not forgetting the good things. You know,
I've already started on certain symptoms. I've still continually shit myself. So there's there's I'm working my way up to it.
dude, I feel that. I totally feel that. Here, I sent you a picture on Facebook. This is what Halifax is like.
Oh geez. Delete, 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 more, delete. It's like I think I told this on the podcast. I don't know if I did or not, but like one time after the podcast, Spencer was complaining of having like an upset stomach. The entire time, like we had to take a break because he had diarrhea. And I was driving home and I get a message and I look at my phone at the light and just a picture of his fucking diarrhea. And I start gagging like I have such a weak stomach. Like I barely even looked at that thing just there because it was so nasty. But I start fucking gagging like really hard, and I like don't look at it anymore. And I'm driving, and I drive for like probably 5 minutes, just constantly gagging, and then I throw up in my mouth. I had to pull over on the side of Deerfoot and puke because you're disgusting poops. So you have a problem, man. You really do.
Dude, that was the donair. That was the donair. That's what caused that.
Stop talking about it.
Dude, the funniest thing was
No, don't even, dude. I'm really comfortable right now on my couch, and like I have like my table like kind of locked into the couch. So if I throw up, there's no turning back here. There's nowhere to go, dude. There's nowhere to go. I got my brand new couch. Don't make this happen right now.
dude, it's not even like you could flush that one.
No. Yours like rained out your ass, dude. Like that's so gross, man.
Dude, that was a waterfall.
Okay, remind you of the creek, the best place in the world for you.
Yeah,
Was
did,
the water
actually.
high? Was the water high?
Yeah, it was so high it fucking flooded the toilet. Oh, dude, I'm getting married.
Yeah, man. Keep it up. It won't last for long if you keep doing that shit. Anyways.
Anyways, okay, so every episode on Misfits on Vinyl, we do a fun little thing called we review an album.
Yes.
And this week we decided because both of us could not decide between two albums with this band. You've read the description, so you know who it is. It's Billy Talent. But Aaron's favorite album from Billy Talent is Billy Talent 2, and mine is Billy Talent 1. So we're both going to actually show you like our favorite albums, and then we're going to
Mhm.
review both of them together, which I think is it's going to be interesting because we've never done this before. Um, but I'm interested because the reviews on both of these albums were very similar in terms of like critically.
But sonically, the sound of both of them, like, they did change. It's like a 3-year difference between when these albums were released, and the sound changed the band. And they talk about it too. I have a little bit of my thing about how the sound changed from their first album to their second album, and some of the themes they were talking about changed as well. But like really solid Canadian band, man. Like I like talking about Canadian artists. I like talking about artists that people our age grew up listening to. Like, I don't know how many people in Canada grew up listening to Billy Talent, but like in our age demographic, I'd say it's a good chunk, man.
Oh,
Really, really awesome band.
it's definitely one of those bands that because of again CanCon requirements, we heard them so much when we were in like around the age where like you start actively, I would say, pursuing different types of music. Like I remember when Billy Talent 1 came out, I was in like grade 4, and I did not wait to go and get that album. I remember I bought that one and Simple Plan's first album at the same time. And one of those albums I still listen to frequently, which is Billy Talent 1. It's honestly insane how heavy they came out of the gate swinging though. And like you mentioned, like their sound changed so much in between the first and second album. And I would say again between the second and third and the third and fourth, but I would say the biggest shift was between 1 and 2. And
Hmm.
I think that what really set them apart was that this was a time when a lot of rock stations were playing butt rock. You know, there was a lot of butt rock on the radio, and so when Billy Talent 1 came out, it was so fucking different from everything else that was being played that it really caught people's attention.
And it's one of those, like, I put them in the category of like bands listening growing up that are Canadian. Like for me, they're like you said, you mentioned Simple Plan. I think of Sum 41. I think of like Finger 11, Metric, like all these bands in Canada. I know Sum 41 is much bigger than just Canada, but those bands growing up at that time that were releasing music in the mid 2000s, releasing their best stuff, in the mid 2000s. They come to mind to me, being like 8 or 9, 10 years old, listening to this sort of music. It's slaps, man. The nostalgia trip was really great this week listening back to these albums.
Oh, totally. And I remember the exact moment that I found this band out because I used to watch Much Music Video on Trial all the time, and
Mhm.
the Much Music Countdown every Saturday. I used to watch that instead of fucking cartoons as a little kid. I would watch like the video countdowns and then go mountain biking all Saturday when I was in like grades 3, 4, 5, 6. Like that was a big part of like what I was doing, right? And I remember the music video for Nothing to Lose uh, coming on, and I was just so fucking captivated for so many reasons. One, that was, I think, the first time that I really found out about, ixnaying oneself, unaliving
Mhm.
oneself, as you say. But secondly, the way that they shot that music video was so fucking cool because they shot it in the first person perspective of the person getting bullied. So you see every single step from them getting picked on, going and eating in the washroom by themselves at lunch, and then eventually going into the garage and putting the hose into the exhaust pipe and putting it into the car. And it was I remember just so fucking heartbreaking. I was like, in grade 4, I think, watching it, and I was just like, this is insane. What the hell? But I was also so blown away by the vocals, by the not just the vocal, but the echo of the vocals in the chorus, and like how heavy the guitar was, yet still so melodic. Like there were so
Mhm.
many things about it that just really stood out to me.
Man,
Um,
Ian DeSaw, the guitarist, man, he is super underrated.
oh,
Um,
entirely.
like he's a really, really talented guitarist. I think that flies under the radar for a lot of people. Um, I like just in Billy Talent in general, like I'm sure we'll get into it, but like really big in Canada, like really big in like Germany and Austria and stuff like that. But as a massive worldwide audience, they're not a huge band. And they fly under the radar for a lot of people. But Ian Dasaw, man, he is crazy on guitar. And his background vocals are like a mainstay for like I'd say 90% of their tracks, man. And he's a really, really talented musician. And he gets his hands kind of everywhere with the band, whether it's on the production side of things, art direction side of things. So he's kind of pushes the direction of the band musically and visually in a bunch of different ways. So big fan of him. And he had that wicked hair back in the
Oh
day.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
did like
fucking that like blowout almost like that
yeah,
blowout
straight
mohawk.
gelled, straight like I don't
Oh,
know. He probably blew all of his residual monies just on gel at Walmart, bro. Like straight up, he had the craziest hair back in the day.
dude, that was one of the things that I remember from one of the video on trials was somebody making fun of his hair, and I don't even remember who it was, but I remember it very fucking like I remember them making fun of his hair. Okay, so let's get into Billy Talent 1 first of
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
we'll so the way that we're gonna do this, we're gonna go through Billy Talent 1, we'll review it, Billy Talent 2, review it, and then we'll go through the history of the band, and we'll just like we'll keep the history short and sweet, but I feel like we end up finding out a lot about the band just through the two albums.
Mhm,
So it's going to be easier for us because we have to just go past the first two albums and a little bit from before. So Billy Talent debut album from Billy Talent. It was released in 2003. It was recorded at the Factory in Vancouver. The band had an album before called Watouche, and it was released under their old name Pezz. Uh, Fun fact: they went by the name Pezz for about 8 years, and then all of a sudden, the group in the states that's named Pezz sent them a cease and desist, and they had no ground to stand on, so they had to change the name. This is honestly probably their heaviest album, I would say, like in terms of grungiest sound. It's got that post grunge sound, but it's also I would say it leans more into the emo sound than what would be traditionally considered post grunge, especially for around the time.
mhm.
Um, the album debuted at number 6 on the Canadian album charts. It sold 7,700 copies in its first week. I guarantee you, I was one of those 7,700 copies. Uh, it was certified 4 times platinum in Canada in January of 2021. And between 1996 and 2016, it was among the top 15 best selling albums by a Canadian band in Canada and among the top 40 best selling albums by a Canadian artist overall, which is fucking insane. Uh,
Mhm.
it's held up so well. This album, honestly, it starts off so heavy with "This Is How It Goes." You have this really crazy quick guitar riff that builds in, and that whole song is actually about one of the members dealing with ALS. Um, I just need to find here where this is. It was fuck, I lost where that is in my notes. But it to go off on this, what they were talking about in this first album was a lot of stuff that they were dealing with at the time. And so when they say that they're friend, they're actually singing about themselves, which is
Mhm.
pretty crazy. So you've got topics of mental health, you've got topics of uh, you know really struggling with coming to terms with, I guess, who you are. And it's weird to think back and realize that when they did this album, they were close to our age. Like this is them out of high school by quite a few years because when the band formed, it was like 1993, and that was when they entered a talent contest together. So
Mhm.
at this point, they're 10 years out of high school. So they've had time to process all of these things and then end up writing these songs. I think that something else that does not get enough credit in terms of this band is their fucking bass and guitar are, like we've said before, with certain bands, they're actually an instrument. They're not used as percussion.
Yep.
You hear the heavy fucking drums kick in on some of these songs Like let me just pull up the track list here for a hot second. Fucking Line and Sinker. Line and Sinker, that's the one. The fucking drums on Line and Sinker are fucking insane. Try Honesty as well. And then Cut the Curtains. Cut the Curtains, I think, has one of the best bass lines out of their entire discography. Even though I do think that the bass shines through a little bit more on the album that you're going to bring up with Billy Talent too. And yeah, but fucking, what are your thoughts on that so far?
No, man, I think you're kind of talking the same language I was just talking. I mean, they like on certain tracks, man, like you mentioned, the guitar is not an afterthought. It's a mainstay. Same with the drums. Punchy snare, man.
Ooh, yep.
Yeah, super punchy snare. I mean, a bunch of songs here. Like probably the biggest one on this album is more than likely River Below. Huge track for them. That's got all the elements we were just talking about there, right? Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
really,
And oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and River Below was like, I think you're right. I think it might have been their biggest one, but it was weird because they released Try Honesty and This Is How It Goes before they released that, and then they
Mhm.
released fucking Nothing to Lose before that as well.
And one thing I was going to mention too that just occurred to me, like this album came out, I was a little too young to listen to it. I was like I was 5 when it released, but when the second one released, I was like 8 or 9 years old. So that's kind of the same ballpark you were in when this one released. So it makes sense why we both have a different connection to both albums. Just on a timeline sense, it does make sense.
Totally, and I think it's interesting too because we both discovered and connected with the band at the same age, but the funny thing is I'm like, it's fucking wild to me that I was allowed to listen to this album when I was a kid. And actually, this is where I have a really funny story about this. So I fucking loved the song "Nothing to Lose" so much that when
Mhm.
I was in grade 5, there was a lip syncing contest at my elementary school, and I chose to do "Nothing to Lose" by Billy Talent. Now, this would have been fine in this day and age. I think that if you were to do it now, we talk about mental health enough now. It's in our fucking everyday vernacular. I think that honest to God, any school, they would be more afraid of the flack that they would get uh from not allowing somebody to do this than having someone do this. Like I
Mhm.
think that the balance now would be different. But the person that like the teacher that was organizing it uh said, no, absolutely not, we are not letting you lip sync to a song about suicide. And my mom sent a fucking scathing letter, and it was like I believe that in order to avoid certain sensitive issues like this, we need to talk about it more. And like just fucking went off. Well, they wouldn't let me do it. So in retaliation, I did the fucking cringiest thing I possibly could have done as a little fucking 10-year-old me. I went in the opposite direction and I did Celebration, like celebrate good times, come on.
Cool in
And
the gang.
yeah, dude. And I went all fucking out with it. And people were like so goddamn uncomfortable because I was humping the guitar. I was just fucking like doing like weird shit, dude. And I was like, yo, you don't want me to do the song about suicide? Great, let's celebrate life, motherfuckers.
There's a party going on around
Around
here.
here, a
Celebration
celebration
to
last
last
throughout the
throughout the
years.
years. Take
So
your
let
good
the good
time
times and
and
your
your
laughter
laughter
too.
too. We gonna celebrate
Celebrate
and
the party
party.
with you.
Come on now.
Celebration. Oh
That's a
fuck.
good story, man. Yeah, I personally, when I was listening to this kind of music, I had like the worst haircut of all time. I remember I was like in like grade 3 and 4, and I like had like long bangs, and I shaved the back of my head, like fucking
Oh god, dude.
Uh, just terrible, man.
Well, you had that. I had fucking tit length blonde hair. And everybody kept calling me a little girl. I also had an ear pierced, and so I was like, no, I'm not a little girl. And then people would be like, oh, your daughter's so nice to my mom. I used to get so pissed about it, dude. No wonder I wanted to fucking sing a song about killing myself.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Anywho,
anywho,
we're gonna
so
get demonetized for all the monetization that we get, anyways.
yeah, for all of our millions of dollars. Listen, we
Yeah.
we 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 were in the ground fucking floor with podcast one.
Yeah. We're making so much money. I was able to buy this $70 mic.
Yeah, we're making so much money. Brendan Schaub wants to talk to us.
I know. CoffeeZilla is about to make a video about how we got duped.
Yeah, we got duped, baby. Okay, so chart performance of Billy Talent 1. Okay, so it actually charted on the Billboard 200. It was 194, but it was 11 on the Heat Seekers.
Nice.
In Canada on the Billboard charts, it was number 6. In Austria, it was 38, and in Germany, 97.
Nice.
And that's the official. It's literally what it's official. That's how it's written. Now, certifications. It is 4 times platinum in Canada with 400,000 records sold.
Wow.
It's gold. The anniversary edition was gold in Canada. It's platinum in Germany with 200,000 records sold. And it's silver in the United Kingdom with 60,000 records sold. When it comes to ratings from critics, it was very favorable, honestly. It was All Music's aggregate is 3 out of 5, which for a debut album isn't bad, especially when you look at what the other ratings are. Like Decoy Music gave it 8 out of 10. The Daily Princetonian gave it favorable. Ottawa's Express gave it 4.5. Q Magazine gave it 3. Hard Rock 9.5 out of 10, and Sputnik Music it was 4.5 out of 5.
Nice.
It was also ranked number 453 in Hard Rock Magazine's book of the 500 greatest rock and metal albums of all time in 2005.
That's pretty good for a recent add to that to that list. That's interesting. I didn't know that about that album.
Yeah, I had no idea either until I got to that. It also had 4 singles: Try Honesty, The X, River Below, and Nothing to Lose. Try Honesty, it's really funny because you see that song and River Below popping up in so many fucking movies around that time that were like not even Canadian movies. Like I don't know if you ever saw the movie Grind.
I haven't.
Okay, it's got funny fucking cameo from Tom Green and a great like side plot with Bam Margera as like one of the main characters, but he's like kind of an antagonist because he's a dick to this girl, and then these skate bros are like nice to her, so then she fucks the one guy. I don't know. It's one of those weird 2000 comedies. It's fucking haggard as hell, dude. But anyways, so both those songs end up showing up in that movie though, which I think is pretty wild. As well as Here Comes the Boom. That's another song in that one, and some Shaggy tracks. Anyways, that's the end of Billy Talent 1.
Nice. Do you want to rate this thing?
Yeah, let's rate it. So every album we review out of a scale of 10, and we rate out of let me pull this up here: technical element, musical element, reception, lyrics, album art, and does it hold up? Technical element. We should also mention that both of the producers it's the same producer on both albums. So that was something I forgot to mention. I know that you'd written about the producer, so I was gonna wait until
we'll talk about it. I think it's his name is Gavin Golden Brown.
Yeah. Gavin Golden Brown.
Yeah, Golden. And just for context, I'll skip over this when I talk about it, but he's worked with a bunch of Canadian artists like Great Big Sea, Metric, Cancer Bats, Mother, The Hip, Bare Naked Ladies, 3 Days Grace.
3 Day Gaze. 3 Day Gaze.
He's also worked with like Lady Gaga. He's worked with Hoobastank. So he's got like interesting credits. But yeah, Yeah, he works out of I think he works out of Vancouver. He's yeah, basically worked with any Canadian band of any name basically. He's got credit on a single or an album with them. So Gavin Golden Brown is the producer.
Gavin Golden Brown. Fuck yeah. Okay, so technical element. I mean, this album is mixed very well. And when it comes to the layering of tracks and everything, I think it's really interesting because there seems to be an intention when like backing vocals are either heard clearly or not.
Mhm.
When it comes to different tracks, like Cut the Curtains, it's like very much like a chant almost. When it comes to like Try Honesty, it's more so like giving an aid to, not adding another instrument. So I think technically it's mixed super well. It sounds super crisp. Sounds just as good now as it did 20 years ago. So I'd probably go an 8 out of 10 on the technical element.
Yeah, I agree mostly. I think I'm gonna put it at a 7 just to balance the rating out. I think 7 I'll go 7.5 on it.
Seven
But
and
I
a
think
half.
I agree with a lot you're saying there. I think the layering of the tracks and the layering of the backing vocals, the way the guitar sounds is layered in and the drums, how punchy they had them, is all, attest to how great the mixing is on the album. So I'll go 7.5.
Hell yeah. Okay, so we're at a 7.75 musical element. Well, we've talked about this a lot. Like, okay, the guitar on like honest to God, the first four Billy Talent albums is so fucking good.
Mhm.
There's not a song where it doesn't shine, even when it's not, even when there are songs that the drums or the bass are the main focus of it. The guitar still shines through because he's so for lack of a better term, fast. Like
Yep.
he's fast while still being melodic, which I think is really important.
And
Um,
I'll tell you what, when I saw them live, he's just as sharp live. They were
oh,
really, really great live, like super tight live. Like his guitar playing live was really, really impressive. Just on a side note, I'll talk about that more later about when I saw them last year. How it was a pretty wicked concert. So
fuck yeah. And like we also got to talk about this too because this is okay, the last track on the album, which I think is interesting that their final track on this album, Voices of Violence. I
mhm.
find it weird that they did not end it on Nothing to Lose because like if they had left it on Nothing to Lose and then it starts over again at This Is How It Goes, that would have been a fucking great uh, you know, chance for them to almost make it a full story. I feel like if they had done that, and it also I like when albums kind of end like when they progress in a way where there's a logical conclusion. Voices of Violence feels like it should be in the middle of the album.
Mm.
Um, but but when it comes to Voices of Violence, what I'll say is that song, every fucking instrument shines through, and
Yeah.
it does kind of feel like it should be. It feels like it was added afterwards because they were just like, hey, we have this song that the vocals are amazing, the guitar is amazing, the bass is amazing, the drums are amazing. We don't know where to fucking put it. Let's just make it a B-side, like that's kind of what it felt like. So when it comes to musical, though, I will say everything really shines through where it shines through. And I do think that as much as I can have my nostalgic glasses on for this album, I do think that they got better in time a little
Mhm.
bit. I think personally, I think they peaked at Dead Silence. I think that that's where all of their instrumentation was just perfectly fucking like layered. But I would give musical, I'd say 7.5.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good point because I do also agree that they got better as they went on musically. I think their sound became more complete um in later albums. I'm gonna go with a 7 on it.
Seven? Fuck yeah. Okay, so we're at a 7.75. Lyrics. Okay, now this one I'm going to go a little bit higher on because I feel like there's a few reasons that I would go higher on this one. One is I think like at the time, there was not anybody getting like the MTV and Much Music airplay that was having songs about someone fucking killing themselves because they were bullied, like that was
Mhm.
something that was so, and the way that they did it too, like need more friends with wings. Uh, like that's such a fucking heartbreaking lyric,
Well, I even
Um,
remember being young and that like resonating, being a powerful lyric, even being, probably a little too young to understand the gravity of exactly what they were saying. But I remember that lyric sticking out, being like under 10 years old and
yeah.
still, that um, having that resonate with someone that can't quite understand the whole concept of, you know, unaliving themselves or suicide or killing themselves, like having that still resonate with a young person, understand what they mean without understanding the whole gravity, kind of speaks to the quality of the lyrics. Um, and even just through the tone of the lyrics and the tone of the messaging to get the message across when you might not understand, like when I was younger, I might not understand the whole complexity of the lyrics, but I understood what the message of the song was. I got it. Um, Without having the context of, life experiences and things of that nature to relate to it more. It just kind of speaks to the accessibility of the lyrics in a song that got radio play here, while still
Mhm.
keeping a strong message and keeping a difficult topic to talk about, but making it accessible for a range of people.
Well, and I think that that's the thing that really shines through with their lyrics across the board in all their albums is that like they're able to say so much without having to, like, they dance the line of metaphor just perfectly enough where
Mhm.
you know exactly what they're saying, but when it comes to the CRTC or the FTC, they couldn't actually give them any shit for it, Like,
And that comes up on the next album too, with a certain track in particular, which we'll talk about as well.
mhm.
So definitely, I would say I'm gonna go high-ish on it. I think 8 is a fair rating for me for lyric wise. Um,
Yeah, I'm gonna go an 8.5.
mhm.
I think I'm gonna go an 8.5 on this one. Okay, reception. It was well received, especially for a debut album. I think like the All Music aggregate, putting it at a 3 out of 5, totally fair. I think that that's probably where it's gonna lie. Like it's probably gonna be a 7 on this one.
Mhm.
Um,
I think that's fairly fair in the grand scheme of things. Like if we have this like we've kind of come into this before when we've talked about Canadian bands or bands that don't have massive international success. It's like how do you define the reception of the album, right? Like they're
mhm.
getting talked about by smaller publications. They don't have the sales that match like a large artist. Like some of the other bands and performers we've talked about in the past. So how do we rate that success? In comparison, when we talk about like a Fleetwood Mac or Bruce Springsteen, these massive artists, how do you compare that way, right?
Well, and I
Um,
think that for this one, like going off of the fact that it's maintained such a high sales percentage over the years, like that I think is where I would lean a little higher than what I would originally say based off of the initial release, right?
mhm.
Like I think the longevity of it makes the reception kind of like that sways it for me personally. If that makes sense.
And we've talked about albums too that over time have gained, more of a popularity. This one has kind of stayed, um, or gotten a little bit better from when it was first released. But we've encountered that in the past too, where we've talked about an artist where the album, in retrospect, has gained, you know, um, much more commercial success than it did when it was originally released. But I would personally come in at like a 6.5. I think, in my opinion.
That's fair. So we're at like a 7.75 still. Album art. Okay. This one is interesting because for their first three albums, they had very like distinct album art, but it was all very much in the same theme. Because with this one, you have the band with like the yellow and the red like starburst, almost like Empire of the Rising Sun style fucking background.
Yeah, it's like broken glass that surrounds the shadow of the
Yeah,
band. Like it's some sort of cracked. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like it's like you have that sort of thing that stands out. Although I will say this is a Mandela effect thing for me. I 100% thought they were on the other side of the album when I was when I was looking at this. I thought that the band was standing on the right side of the
Mm.
album, and that Billy Talent was on the right side, like the writing. So that was a weird moment because I looked at it and I went, "What the fuck?" Uh, but yeah, I think like they have a consistent theme without their first three albums because it was a trilogy. You know,
Mhm.
they made it a fucking trilogy. Um, I would say in terms of Canadian albums, this is a pretty recognizable one. I think that both their first two albums have such recognizable fucking
Mhm.
album art. I'd probably go with I'd say 7.5 to an 8, somewhere in there.
See, I find the second album much more iconic in um the visuals personally. It is like, nostalgia factor putting that into play as well. Like it's a recognizable album for me, but I don't think it's overly like this album we're talking about, Billy Talent One. I don't think it's overly anything spectacular, album cover wise. I personally would put it more in like the 6.5 range. It's pretty standard stuff for a smaller band's first album cover. It's nothing that's it's not a super unique piece of art. It's a shadow of a band,
Mm-hmm.
computer generated. I'm gonna go at a 6.5.
No, dude, that wasn't computer generated. They really stood in yellow.
just nothing spectacular for me. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's fair. Okay, so does it hold up? That's the big question.
I
I'd say
say
yes.
I say yes, and I know some of this, like we've talked a couple different times, but like some of it is definitely on a nostalgia factor. I don't think this style of music is nearly as popular as it was at the time. Um, like in that sense, sonically, like if you were to compare it to today's standards, I'd say no, it's a little different than where the rock scene is now. But I would say as a listener, personally, I think it stands up. It holds the test of time. It's still very popular in the Canadian music scene. You still hear tracks of this on the radio. If you listen to X or something like that here in Calgary. So I would say yes, it holds up.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair. Okay, so out of 10, we got a 7.5.
I think
I
that's
think
pretty fair.
I think that's pretty fair. All right, so let's get on to Billy Talent 2. You doing this one, Aaron?
Yeah, I'll talk this one through.
Fuck yeah, let's go.
All right. So Billy Talent 2 is the second studio album by Canadian rock band Billy Talent. It was released June 27th of 2006. It debuted at number 1 on the Canadian album charts, selling 48,000 copies in its first week. The album also reached number 1 on the German album charts. So this is where I was talking about earlier, the German popularity kind of comes through. It also peaked at number 4 in Austria, I think in like the top 25 in Finland. So it's kind of has a bit of a European success as well for the band. Um, it's been described as a post-hardcore, alt-rock, punk rock album. It was recorded primarily at the Warehouse Studio in Vancouver through late 2005, early 2006. That studio is actually owned by Brian Adams.
Really?
So yeah, another fun little Canadian connection there.
Well,
Um,
good thing none of the members of the band are Asian.
I don't know. I don't understand that reference.
Oh, he during the pandemic, he was all mad that his concerts got canceled. And so he was like he posted a thing that was like I was supposed to be playing at such and such stadium tonight, but because of some bad eating such and such in China, now we can't do the concert. Be
Uh,
vegan. And like it was just so cringy, dude. It was so fucking cringy.
so it's like not as bad as what Mark Wahlberg did, but it's
Yeah,
getting to that point. Could go there.
still annoying.
Yeah, makes sense. Like we mentioned before, it was produced by Gavin Golden Brown. Also, producer credits go to Ian DeSaw, the guitarist of the band. Despite its great success in Canada and Germany, the album was not as successful in the United States. It peaked at 134 on the Billboard 200 music charts, selling 7,200 copies in its first week. So better than their first album. Performed a little bit better, but still not, that breakthrough album for them in the U.S. mainstream music rock scene. Um, the album, so this is something that they talked about. I have a quote here coming up as well. The album has less anger and language than their previous self-titled album, as they had mellowed out and matured as men, and as a band. More songs dealt with real life issues, to the praise of fans and critics. So here's a quote from Jonathan Gallant. He was speaking to the Ottawa Sun. He said, "We want to do something completely different from the first album, from the first record, because we had changed dramatically and had learned a lot from personal relationships. Everyone in the band was partnering up and dealing with those issues. The general theme of this record is trust and the lack thereof, or breaking up. That seemed to fuel the record." So that's something he mentioned around that time when the album was released. This is actually a unique connection to me. But beginning of the fall of 2005, songs from the album were purposely leaked by the band. A demo of Red Flag circulated across the internet, even though it had already appeared on soundtracks to some video games, which I was playing at the time. Burnout Revenge, Burnout Legends, SXX on Tour, and
Oh,
NHL 06. NHL 06 is the big one for a lot of people. That's like, if you're into sports games at the time, the NHL franchise were known for having like really awesome rock focused soundtracks. The games really kind of suck now, but back in the day, they really like, I still play NHL games, but back in the day, they were really, really known for having like wicked soundtracks.
dude, and
Um,
and like honest to God, NHL '08, that soundtrack introduced me to so many fucking amazing artists. Like
yeah,
the I totally get what you mean. Well, that's the thing though too, is like, dude, video games used to be a way for people to discover music, and it doesn't really feel that way anymore, you know? Like it
no,
feels
it's
like
it's different. It's different now, certainly, because everything is mostly online focused. That you don't really pay attention to the soundtrack like you used to in previous games. But yeah, like that song on NHL 06 is kind of how I got introduced to Billy Talent. Um, so really cool that it was mentioned in the research here. I was able to find that. But yeah, like it was on a bunch of different games through EA. So the Burnout series, SXX on Tour, like I said, NHL 06. It was also on the Atlantic Records compilation, Black by Popular Demand, which is an interesting name. But anyways, so
dude,
I
that's
have
Justin
the
Trudeau.
yeah.
Black by popular demand.
So I have a list of the singles they released with this album: Devil in a Midnight Mass, Red Flag, Fallen Leaves, Surrender, and This Suffering.
And
Um,
dude, one more track that I absolutely every fucking time I hear it, it just brings me back. The Navy song.
mhm.
Dude, the guitar riff in the Navy song just fucking it hits so different, dude. I don't know what it is. Uh
Man, man, those singles I just mentioned too were like all over Much More Music when this
yeah.
album came out. The music videos were always being played. So yeah, really cool. I love the song Surrender. It's my favorite Billy Talent song. Um, really, really like that track. I actually watched a video doing research for this. They were talking about that and how they purposely wanted to make a song that sounded different than anything they'd done before, and that was their idea going into that song. And yeah, it's a really great track. Like I said, my favorite Billy Talent song. Um, and what we were talking about earlier about how they talk about, certain subjects, but make it still radio friendly, like talk about Devil in a Midnight Mass, one of those tracks too, where they talk about certain subjects that aren't exactly easy to talk about. And even the music video referenced a bunch of stuff too. Yeah, cool song, cool album. The bass on that track is just crazy too. Um
Dude, and so creepy the fucking vocals in that track,
mhm,
man. Like it's haunting. It's fucking
yeah.
haunting, dude. Like
Mhm,
the fact that that song was one of those songs that everybody was like using as pump up music too, like it was
mhm,
I remember that blaring in the fucking locker room at rodeos and at hockey games and fucking everywhere, man. Like it was everywhere. Fucking I sent you the video of it today. Andrew Lagoda guy from Portugal, his section or his segment in New World Disorder 8, it literally kicked off the mountain bike video, which is like that is for those that don't know, the New World Disorder movies were the biggest mountain biking movie franchise of all time. Like,
Mhm.
you will never see that again because now everything is about clips. But, like, at the time, the whole fucking year, you waited for New World Disorder to come out because you knew that there was just going to be some insane shit. And that was the first movie that they had, or that was, oh no, that was the second movie that Andrew Lagata guy was in. But it was how that was how they started it, and I just remember that guitar riff coming in and everything being in slow motion at first, and then just fucking bang! It's just all of a sudden this insane amount of tricks that people were doing on BMX bikes. This dude's doing it on a mountain bike on like massive jumps. Um, Such a side note from what we're talking about, so I apologize. But
Anyways, I also just found one correction to what we were talking about earlier. So it's actually MS, not ALS. Just for
oh fuck, okay.
yeah. So Andrew Solowiniuk, tough name to pronounce. The drummer, he's dealing with MS. Just for a correction there. Anyways, you were speaking about the voice and the sound of his voice, like the lead singer Ben, like his voice is very unique too. Just something we haven't talked about as well. Like I don't want to use the word shrill because I don't think it's correct, but there's like like a rawness, but not in like a low, like grungy smoker sort of way. It's like in a higher pitched, nasally sort of way with his vocals that come through a lot on this album specifically. That's that really shines through, I think, on the piece of music they released with this record. I don't know if you feel similarly, but there's something about his voice, like it's not I know shrill is not the right word. I'm trying to find the right word for it,
No, but
but
I know exactly what you mean because it kind of sounds like if the lead singer of ACDC could actually sing.
It's piercing. That's probably
Piercing. There we go.
because for some reason shrill comes in like a negative context, but like when I look up the definition here, it's high pitched or piercing. I feel like that's pretty accurate to his vocals.
It
Um,
totally is, and I think that it's interesting too because like there isn't really anybody with his cadence either when it comes to his singing.
So this album, on the reception side, it sold like 400,000 copies in Canada. It sold 200,000 copies in Germany. Received really positive reviews. So Absolute Punk had it at an 89% positive rating. That's an aggregate score. All Music had it looks like a 4.5 out of 5. IGN had it at a 7.9 out of 10. Jam had it at that same 4.5 out of 5, and Sputnik Music has it at a 4 out of 5. So
Hell,
yeah,
fucking yeah.
yeah, pretty nice ratings, man. Positive reviews of the album. I think it's like I said before, one of those albums for me personally that takes me back to being younger. Like even just re-listening through. I haven't listened to this album in years. Kind of takes me back to like listening to like we were talking about with the City and Color episode, listening to like Alexis on Fire, listening to City and Color, listening to Billy Talent, listening to Metric, like all these bands that were getting popular radio play when we were younger, that were big deals to us growing up. It brought me right back into that. I started listening to bands I hadn't listened to in a long time because of that. So it was a good little trip down memory lane for me personally.
Well, and I gotta be completely honest when it comes to Billy Talent too. I didn't actually buy this album when it first came out. I had a few of the singles. Like I had the first three singles. Like I had Devil in a Midnight Mass, Red Flag, and Fallen Leaves on my iPod, right? Um,
Mhm.
but I didn't. I bought the first and then the third Billy Talent albums. Um, it wasn't until like it would have been like 2011. I borrowed it from a friend and uploaded it onto my computer, and then started listening to it. So I actually listened to three a lot more like earlier all the way through than I did two.
Hmm.
Um, and what I thought was interesting was going in that order. I realized how much better two was than three. You know, like three kind of felt like there was. You know, we've talked about how they got better sonically, but I do feel like three kind of took a sidestep, and it wasn't like they progressed more. It wasn't like they got worse or anything. It's just it felt like three was 2.5.
Yeah.
You know, like you even had like songs that were flat out just sounded lyrically the same as on two.
There wasn't that same jump. Um,
No.
and I agree with you on that. And like even like, I went and listened back to a bunch of their stuff, and I even have listened to some of their newer stuff, which sounds so different than anything they've ever made before. Even when I went and saw them last year, like I listened to Crisis of Faith, their most recent album. There's one song that was getting like a lot of there was two that were getting a lot of radio play here in Canada, like I Beg to Differ, and then End of Me with Rivers Cuomo from Weezer. Just so different than anything they've released before. It's kind of gone more in the radio friendly, poppy rocky sort of genre than they had previously been in the past. Which I mean, they've changed with the times, I guess, is the what I'm getting at. Because when they were releasing this album, this was the popular style of rock music, from bands like My Chemical Romance to, like I've mentioned before, Alexis on Fire, stuff like that. This heavier, post-hardcore, um, punk sort of sound that was different from the early 2000s stuff, different from the pop punk of Sum 41 and Simple Plan. It was heavier stuff. This was the popular style of music. Um, at that time. So they kind of, were setting the bar or a part of that movement after 2005. So like I'd say like 2005 to 2008 was kind of the peak of that style of rock music. At least for me personally.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because like I do feel like this was the album that ended that trend. You know, like it really it around this time, what ended up becoming popular on the airwaves, especially in Canada, was shit like Mariana's Trench. You know, like
Hmm.
we took a fucking man. I was just talking to somebody about this, like the Mitchell Saddleback. He's the guy that I'm living with here. He's also in the cast of Pewagon, which, by the way, opens up tomorrow. So when this podcast is out, we're in the run in Halifax. But we were talking about how like from 2007 to 2011, there was just bad music. You
It
know,
was
like
like
there,
Down with Webster and Headley was like
yeah,
what was popular here in Canada. Mariana's Trench is a good pick. Yeah, like it went to like a pop rock sort of deal more than anything. And that time in music anyways was like transitional. Um there was like the weird like influence of dubstep into popular tracks,
yeah,
things like that. Like there was like every hip hop song, like radio friendly hip hop song, had to have like a beat breakdown that was like dubsteppy in genre, or the crossover from like country pop was getting popular as well. Like there was the music had no sort of like there was no solid leader in genre, where it's like today like hip hop and dance music is kind of the like pop dance music are kind of the ones that control the radio scene, where at this
yeah,
point in time it was like a transition from rock from the early 2000s rock music, and pop music was certainly still popular. Was the dominating genre, but pop and rock were what was dominating the airwaves. And this point, it was like in a transitional period where it kind of, the genre and the popular genres were changing from this heavier stuff to more, radio friendly, generic, sort of cut and paste rock and roll, cut and paste pop rock, cut and paste pop um, at the time. So it was like right at I think it was right in the middle. Like I think I think 2 years after that is where it changed. But um, I think personally at this point in time, like at least in Canada, like this was the dominating rock radio and dominating style of music for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, and I think like it's so true because it was transitional. Like you mentioned dubstep, but it's like, dude, they added dubstep to fucking everything around 2007 to 2011. Like that was such a I don't know why it was like there was a few bangers that really did stand out, and I think like if we look back at that time, who are some of the pop artists that are still going today? We had like
Mm.
Rihanna, we had
Mhm.
Taylor Swift, we had Kanye, we had we had a few really good artists, and then just so much shit and so many one hit wonders in that time that it kind of felt the same as like the late 90s,
Mhm.
Um,
I think you're right, like a transitional period in music. And even like I was thinking about like even like you listen to rock radio today. Like I don't listen to radio very often anymore. If I'm driving my car, I'm listening to either my music or I'm listening to talk radio. Like I'm a nerd with that stuff. But like rock radio now, like if I ever turn on CJ or X, it's all like CJ is different because they just play like older stuff. But X is like mostly folk based rock. Like I'd say a good 90% of it now is like kind of what's dominating the airwaves for them. It's not heavy guitars anymore. It's indie rock and folk rock.
yeah.
Where like
It,
back in this time, it was all this heavier stuff that had the dominating airplay.
Well, and it's weird too, because like I remember when I was a little kid, CJ was the shit, dude. CJ 92 was amazing. It
Hmm.
was like honest to God, I remembered it from when I was in grade 4 when I lived in Invermere, because we got CJ in Invermere, right? And so I remember listening to Jerry Forbes every single morning on the bus on the way to school.
Hmm.
I remember discovering a ton of fucking great music from CJ back then, because they would play things like The Killers, and they were playing like what was the new rock at the time, and they haven't changed at all. So now they're a classic rock station. Like,
So I just looked up their recently played here. I'll read some of the recent. Funny enough, there's a Billy Talent song on here, but so since 2:30 this afternoon, so the past hour, I'll read past hour and a half. So they've played All Apologies, Nirvana, I Am the Highway, Audio Slave, The Drugs, Mother Mother, Around the World, Red Hot Chili Peppers. They played Limelight by Rush, Enter Sandman by Metallica, When I Come Around by Green Day, Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith, Out for Blood by Sum 41. What else do we got here? Unstoppable by Disturbed, Gone Away by The Offspring, Start Me Up by the Rolling Stones, Devil on My Shoulder by Billy Talent, Say What You Want by Beastie Boys, Give Up the Grudge by Gob, and Another One Bites the Dust by Queen.
oof,
Yeah, so and I mean they do play a lot of the same songs over and over. Just looking at some of these other ones, like a lot of Our Lady Peace and seeing Guns N' Roses, Rob Zombie. They play Dragula all the time. There you go, another Billy Talent. Billy Talent is now CJ's one of their playables. But yeah, they yeah, they do play a lot of the same stuff, unfortunately. Like I never grew up listening to CJ, but I worked in enough warehouses with a lot of blue collar people that swear by that station, and I remember working and listening to the radio all day and you would hear the same songs. So
dude, and
not surprising.
it was such a bummer too when Jerry Forbes retired. Like, okay, so Jerry Forbes is someone like I gotta take a fucking side note for a second, because this is Canadian broadcasting like history, and like I'm nerding out for a second here, but Jerry Forbes, he was in a lot of ways he was like Canada's Howard Stern for a while. Like he was like the number one fucking radio show in all of Alberta. He had people across the country knew who he was. And his show was fucking crazy. He'd do all these crazy phone pranks. He'd fucking prank called the president of the United States. Like he did wild shit, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so when I was hosting a show on GTFO radio, like fuck, I don't know, this would have been like 10 years ago. I got to interview him, but the only time that worked was on the commercial break of CJ. And so I interviewed him while he was off air, but he was just about to go back on air, and like it was just so weird, like going back and forth. But when he retired, that was when I knew like CJ is fucking it's not going to be the same anymore because he retired in 2018, and they so he had been co-hosting the mornings with JD, and JD is awesome. I love this guy, but the other guy that they got him to like
Mhm.
co-host with him, he's a fucking weird dude. He seems like a weird
Jesse,
dude.
Jesse,
Jesse
I think.
Mods, yeah.
Yeah, Jesse and JD. Yeah. Ah, man, I don't know. Like radio is such a strange place now. Like everything is dominated by like iHeart, whatever, iHeart Media. Like every radio station. I feel like 3 out of the 4 big ones here, 3 out of the 5, whatever it is, the big ones here in town are all owned by the same company. Um,
Yeah, and you know what's crazy about that is that's because iHeart, the reason that it's dominating everything now is because the restrictions were lifted on how many radio stations companies were allowed to own.
mhm,
Because there was a point in time where they were not allowed to own past a certain amount of stations, and when that was the case, there was more like regional like artists being played, but that's where like record companies, like in the 90s, this is where it became a big trend where you started to hear the same fucking songs at every single city that you went to.
mhm.
um so that's a bit of fun broadcasting history.
Yeah, and I
uh
mean that's why we have a lot of love for like CKUA and CJSW. Personally, I mean they don't always play great music, but I got love for the independent radio stations here locally just for that reason. Not only do they shine local talent, but they also, play a different music. They don't play the same songs. They have unique radio shows, man. Like whatever happened to having a radio hour or having 2 hours where a different host played a certain style of music,
yeah, dude.
curated a playlist. That's not a thing anymore. Like if you even listen to pop radio, there's no uniqueness from show to show. Hosts don't bring anything unique to the table. They're not, they're picking from the same lineup of songs as the person before. Nobody's actually introducing you to, new artists the way it used to be. And that's even probably before our time, really, that radio used to be like that. But it's, as somebody that appreciates um, the business of radio, it's disappointing as a listener. Like so many people turn away from radio now because of that reason. Like you don't get you introduced to anything anymore. And some of that's too is, the domination of Spotify and all that sort of stuff where you can get curated music, get introduced to artists based off your listening algorithm. But I mean, I don't know, personally, I still long for that radio thing because I still I'll listen to CJSW and Shazam a song just because it was unique and something I hadn't heard before, right?
Oh yeah, and the amount of times that I would be like, oh, I have to listen until the DJ is speaking again so that I can find out what that song was.
Mhm.
That doesn't happen very much anymore. Like, and it sucks too because there's not even okay. Let's look at it like this. It it's hard for you to even find in both major and medium and small markets to not find the same DJ doing multiple stations because the afternoons of or the mornings on X92.9 in Calgary are also the evenings of the Wolf in Regina.
Mhm.
And it's because they just pre-record everything now because it's cheaper than hiring more DJs, and so you don't have that personality. You don't have that nice touch of somebody that knows the community and might go, hey, this is something that I think you might like, you know,
Yep.
this is something that I think you might like. And you don't get that anymore because there's it's hard to even find programming directors at a lot of radio stations because a lot of times it does come from these big companies like iHeartMedia, and they tell you exactly what songs you're going to be playing throughout the hour. So
Yeah.
DJs don't have much point, and it's kind of a bummer. It's a fucking bummer, dude. That's why
Well, it's
we're
like when I was considering getting into radio, like before we actually started this podcast, like I got accepted into school, right, to do radio. And that was like something I thought about quite heavily because I'm a big fan of talk radio specifically. Here locally, I'm a big fan of like the eye opener in the morning, that sort of thing on CBC. I like the highlight of local stories. I like the highlight of local businesses and stuff like that. That's something I enjoy listening to. They have a wide range of topics, whether or not I'm actually interested in what they're talking about. But they have a guy that comes in once a week, a naturalist, that talks about a bird sighting he saw. Like it's like shit that I enjoy that sort of stuff. Weirdly enough, but when it came to music radio, like I personally had no interest in getting involved because of those reasons that we just discussed. Like it was this seems like the uniqueness of being a disc jockey is lost its luster.
Yeah, there's not so much there's not so much of that. It's a bummer, but that's the life we live. That's
Only,
why
only, only me and you could have a passionate talk about the state of radio.
I know. But you know what? It's reasons like that that we are the number one English speaking music history podcast in Chile,
It's
motherfucker.
true. It's true. The person that
Oh,
listens to us in Chile is like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with all the radio stations they're talking about, all the specific Calgary things they've discussed.
I too like Wild 95.3.
Yeah.
Just
Anyways,
kidding. Just kidding. No one
anyways,
likes Wild 95.3.
back to Billy Talent. That was a long sidebar. We can review the album, man.
Yeah, let's review the album here.
So all
So
those same
every
elements we discussed before, you don't have to
yeah,
say it again. We're gonna review it on technical, musical, lyrics, reception, album art, and does it hold up? We give it a rating out of 10. Yeah, we kind of discuss our opinions on it, all that fun stuff. So let's start with technical. Technically, how do you feel about this album, Spencer?
I feel very similarly about this album as I do with the last one.
Yeah.
I think that what's interesting is like they they have a producer that knows exactly what he's doing, and he does it really fucking good,
Yeah.
on both of these albums. And it's interesting because we haven't actually reviewed two albums by the same band before. Even though we have done albums that have had the same producer as a different album. So it's funny because you can't really see a progression so much in technical as you can in musical in this album, I think. Um, I think that technically everything is layered super fucking well. Um, you you find in this album, I think you find that some of the instruments shine through a little more than they did on the last one. Specifically, the guitar. I think that the guitar is the one that on this album really shines through. Um, that fucking riff in the Navy song is just insane. It's so fucking crazy how you could just play that riff without any other instrument and still have the exact same song. Um, so fuck, I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to go an 8 on this one.
I was thinking of sticking the same rating as I did the first time. I think an 8 is they didn't do anything differently, which isn't a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think an 8 is a really fair rating. I think they worked with the same team. They accomplished exactly what they did on the first album. I think it's tight. It sounds good. It's mixed well. The instruments shine where they need to shine. So I think an 8 is a fair rating.
Yeah, and then okay, so now musical. We're at an 8 right now. I
Mhm.
would go musically. This album's fucking incredible. Like there's
Mhm.
there's a big jump from 1 to 2 here. And like I mentioned before, 2 to 3 it just steps to the side and then it jumps again with Dead Silence. I felt that side note here. I feel like Dead Silence might be like that was their last good album in my opinion, and I think that it was their best one. Musically, maybe not lyrically, maybe not in terms of singles, but I felt musically that album like shines above all the rest. Um, but on this album, I'd have to go an 8 on it. I'd go a solid 8. Because I think I went a 7 on the last one,
Mhm.
7.5. I would go an
So
8 on this one.
it's funny that you mentioned it because I was talking about Billy Talent with Sarah because Sarah's a fan of the band too, right? Um, so she put her list as 2, 3, Dead Silence is her favorites. Um, so it's specifically Dead Silence being her favorite. So it's interesting the different perspectives. fans of the band. But anyways, yeah, I for rating wise musically, I agree that I think it's we talked before that it's an improvement. Um, I think the songs are tighter. Um, and the like even the bridge and like something like Surrender where it just like jumps, right? I think I found like that little jump there is like so sweet. It stands out, is like taking a risk on a musical element. So I'm gonna go an 8.5 on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that that's a solid one. So we're at like an 8.1 right now.
Mhm.
Uh lyrically lyrically I feel like again, this one I feel like as songwriters, I don't feel like there's much of a drastic improvement. I think the lyrics are just as good and just as poignant. It's just different topics that they're talking about, you know? So I would probably go I'm gonna go fuck man, I don't even know. I think I went an 8.5 last time. I'll go an 8.5 again on this one.
I'm gonna go an 8. I think you're right. I think they did what they did strong on the first album once again on this album. And I think the real improvement comes from their songwriting on the music side of thing more than the lyrical side of things. So I think an 8 for me sticks true. I think it, kind of they did what they did the first time around. They did it good. They didn't have to change up too much about the lyrics, how they wrote their songs lyrically. So I think an 8 is a fair rating.
Yeah,
Um,
I totally agree. Um,
Reception.
reception. All right. Well, this one. Oh God. I don't know. It's weird because they got so much more, such better reception on this album. It's not weird. Well, it makes sense because the first album was a fucking, that was a slow burner. You know,
Mhm.
that was a silent fucking stabber. You know. Um, but after the throat was cut, then they came out swinging, and so this one initially fucking blew everything out of the water. I find it funny that this one though, over time has not had the same number of sales as
Mm.
one. When I don't know why that is because there was more singles off this album that were fucking you know, incredible in terms of like what they did commercially. Like I talked about this with you in the group chat. I felt like the singles off of this album I didn't actually like as much as the singles off of one. But I like the songs that were not the singles on this album better than the songs that were on one. You know, the only one that I would say on this one, I agree with you. Surrender, I think, is one of the absolute best Billy Talent songs. So fuck, I don't know, man. I fucking 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 on the fucking reception.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little higher than I did last time. I'm still gonna, I think I went 6.5 last time, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
maybe so. I think I'm gonna go to a 7.5. It was an improvement from their first go around, so I think a 7.5 is my gonna be my rating for it. I think they got that bigger success in Canada, like it opened at number one, and it also peaked at number one in Germany. It was higher in some charts in Europe, and they ended up following up this album with a tour in Europe. Playing in UK, playing in Germany. They play big festivals in Germany. They still to this day play big festivals in Germany. So I would say a 7.5 is a fair rating on in my perspective for it.
I would totally agree. And so I think we're right now we're at an 8. Album art, fucking, I don't know, fucking, it's good. Fucking, I'm not gonna waste. It's an 8. Album art's an 8 in my
Yeah,
opinion.
okay. I was gonna say I like it so much better than the first one. Like the mouth coming out of the white background, the Billy Talent 2, same font as the first one, but the mouth coming out of it is just super sick. Um,
Yeah, it
yeah, it
does look
looks
really good.
Yeah, like the jaw or whatever it is, like a doctor's something you see at the dentist, right? The dentures, the
Yeah,
dentures at the dentist.
dude,
Reminds me to
I
brush
wouldn't
my
know what
teeth.
that's like. I wouldn't know what that's like, motherfucker. Come
It's
on
true.
now.
It's
Hey.
true. It's true. It's true. When you go to get your teeth fixed, you'll be like, I want this smile.
And then they'll go, why? It's kind of yellow. Why would you want that one?
It's actually quite white.
Is it?
Yeah, it is quite white.
Let me look at the. Oh, it's the around the side that's yellow. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, there's just black specks on the teeth.
yeah,
Yeah,
cavities,
yeah.
cavities.
Fucking that's what the suffering is about.
Yeah, yeah.
Where's the line, Aaron? Where's the
Root
line?
canal, root canal. That's what that song's about. This suffering is about my root canal.
Yeah, I got some sympathy for that one.
Does it hold up?
I'd say yes. I'd say
Yes.
that it holds up. I'd say absolutely. So this one's 8 out of 10. Billy Talent
Yeah.
one is 7.5 out of 10. I think that that's fair.
Awesome. Now, one more thing before we go. I didn't talk about it yet, but when I saw them in concert, one of the best concerts I've ever been to, just like energy wise.
Yeah.
It was freaking insane, man. It was at the Gray Eagle, which is like not a great venue, just saying. But fucking it was nuts, man. Like so many crowd surfers, like a ginormous mosh pit. Like the band just had like wicked energy. They sounded great, like I said. But like I've never seen so many crowd surfers in my life. People would crowd surf, they get thrown into the security. Security would walk them to the back and they just get up and crowd surf again.
Oh shit.
Yeah, like it was insane, man. Like it was like right, like the restrictions for COVID had kind of calmed down finally at that point, and like it was insane. Really, really awesome concert.
Dude,
So I,
that's so crazy. Like,
yeah,
cause
really
that
good
I
show.
forgot that that was during fucking COVID too.
Mhm. Well, it was like 2 years into it, but it's still we still had that like this past summer there was no one talked to COVID at all, but the summer before there was still things in place. Not so much restriction wise, but lots of talks and whatnot about it. So, yeah, really, really awesome concert. Props to them for putting on a great show. Like being in like their late 40s, almost 50, they brought the energy. They really had a really awesome performance. So,
Dude, how depressing is that to think about?
yeah,
They're
they're
almost
like
50.
40, they're like 47. Like all of them are like 47 or 48 years old.
Oh Jesus Christ. Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah, time moves, Spencer.
Time zero marches on.
Speaking of
Doesn't
time, I
stop for
think it's
anyone.
time. I think it's time.
I think it's
Uh,
time. I mean, we didn't get into about the band, but I mean, I think we kind of covered it throughout the entire thing.
oh
We
yeah, I
talked
forgot
about,
we were meant to do that. We just kept talking and talking and talking.
you know what, we gave people so much this episode, and honestly, I've bled my heart dry for our fans yet again. No,
No,
I
good
no no no.
music talk specifically today, man. It was really fun. Good episode. It's
Yeah,
great to be back.
it was so much fun. Yeah, this was a blast. Even though we can't see each other, even because we're basically recording like a fucking phone call.
Mhm.
But no, it was a blast to be back. We're gonna hopefully get a few more of these while I'm on tour here with Pewagan with Act Pick Theater Company. We're currently doing a show run at the Neptune from the 3rd of October until the 8th. And then we're touring all around Nova Scotia before we go up to the Northwest Territories. And we open at the Northern Arts Center on the 18th of October. And then we tour around the Northwest Territories to a bunch of communities. So if you are in any of the communities, I don't remember what they all are. I am just going to get in the van, and where we go, we go. That's it's nice when you don't have to plan the tour. But yeah, if people want to leave us a review, please do. It helps so much. Leave us a 5-star review and then just shit on us in the comments. That's honestly best way to do it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited to be back. Like you said, we're going to be pumping out some more of these makeshift zoomy episodes over the next little bit, but we're back, baby,
We're
and it's
back,
good to be
baby.
back. It's good to be back. I'm excited to see you when you get back into town. I don't even know when you're back, but I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, it's been great to be back. It feels like I'm home.
October 29th, I'm back, Aaron. October 29th.
Jesus.
Yeah, well, I'm back for a day, but I fucking I don't really count that. Like I'm back because my connecting flight to the north is in Calgary on the 16th.
Mm.
So I have a day because it's an early morning flight, so I actually have the whole fucking day in Calgary. But I don't know how much I'm gonna do in my one day that I'm home after being gone for a month and a half. Like I feel
No,
like
there's no expectation. I understand, my man.
I
Fucking
feel.
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like I feel like if I don't hang out with my fiance, she'll get mad at me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was expecting us to record 15 episodes in 24 hours. It was
Dude,
my expectation.
we fucking blow out our whole fucking year. We just get everything done
Yeah,
in a day.
yeah, the great 24-hour podcast race.
Honestly, we should do a 24-hour podcast-a-thon. That would
Oh
be.
God, I'd be
I
miserable.
wonder. I wonder what the longest podcast ever recorded was. Let me just look this up. Uh, world record longest podcast. All right, let's see. Okay, in I'm Mike Russell, co-founder of UK Podcasters Community and New Media Europe. Was thrilled to host a 36-hour nonstop podcast on the 21st and 22nd of April of 2016. He didn't sleep for the full 36-hour marathon and broke the world record for the longest ever continuous podcast. We can break that. We can fucking break that.
We get some
I
guests organized and fucking order a flat of Red Bull, and we might be
Dude,
able to do it.
I think that we can do it. I think that we can do a longest continuous podcast. I have no doubt in my soul. Things will get wonky around hour 18 until
Yes.
hour 37. Um,
Yes.
but I don't have any doubt that we could do it.
Just imagine how much we're gonna have to spend on fucking hard drives.
Oh, dude, the amount like I feel like what we would have to do is shoot at very low quality.
Yes. Yes. More than likely.
And
Anyways.
fucking no one would
Anyways.
listen to the full 36 hours either.
No, even I wouldn't listen to it. I have a tough time listening to us for fucking half an hour. So,
Oh, dude,
anyways,
so do our listeners based on the fucking
yes, yes,
analytics.
yes, yes. We're basically just doing it for each other,
We're doing it for each other.
which is the best part about this.
And
Anyways,
for
man,
Chile.
I miss you, man. I want to get off here. I got to pee so bad. So,
All right, I'll talk to you later, buddy. And to everyone else there listening, anal contusions.